Bold prediction, Eric McAllister will not be TCU's top receiver versus Arizona State. Oh yeah, it's locked on Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Horned Frogs podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything TCU athletics, Monday through Friday and twice on Friday. I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. And today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. We say twice on Friday because it's game day, not Saturday. You don't have to wait any longer. Just a few more hours before TCU and Arizona State kick off. I have a couple of numbers from the Arizona State game notes that I think are interesting and impact this week's matchup, tonight's matchup. Segment 2, the game plan has already been laid to stop Sam Leavitt. They did it last week, but there's a couple of things different between Leavitt and Kevin Jennings. And this whole thing kicks off with what I think is a little bit of a bold prediction, and that's that Jordan Dwyer is in line for a big game, and he will be the best receiver or the most productive receiver for TCU on Friday night. Now, I think that there's two ways to look at that statement. One's a little spicier than the other. I'll give you the mild version of it first, and that's just that TCU has a ton of weapons, right? Like they have a good amount of running backs and they have a good amount of receiving threats. I don't want to just say wide receiver and exclude the tight ends, but they have a good amount of receiving threats. The first game, it was Dwyer. The second game, it was Manjack. The third game, it was Eric McAllister. One could argue those are obviously the top three receiving threats. One could argue it's a rotation. Now it's Dwyer's time again. So that's a little bit mild. But I think when looking at what Eric McAllister did just last week against SMU, 254 yards, receiving for a quarter century, the idea of him not coming in and sustaining that momentum can sound wild on the surface. But I'll say this. Jordan Dwyer is going to have a big-time game because of Eric McAllister. We traced it back to the season opener in which everybody was looking for McAllister. But coming into the season, that's the top guy. Everybody's looking for him to explode. Some of the older receivers above him have left the room. He is the top guy now. I think that it's going to be a spread the ball around type of offense. I don't know if anybody ever truly asserts themselves as the week in, week out top guy, but this is how we were looking at it coming into the season. Eric McAllister was the focal point of the North Carolina defense, and that opened the door for Jordan Dwyer, and I expect that to happen again. Once again, I think just after 254 yards, saying anybody's going to be the top receiver other than you, in my opinion, is a little bit of a bold take. So I thought I'd jump out the gate on today's Friday episode, the first of two, because we will be back with a live show after the game. And let's see if my bold prediction is right. But I thought that this was a cool way to jump out the door with it. Here's my thing. My dad gave me some crap about my Eric McAllister take from last week, saying that Dwyer had one more game to outperform McAllister, not Manjack. Outperform McAllister and he'd be the number one. And then McAllister drops 254. But the thing is, Eric McAllister, more likely than not, is going to spend every single down or 90% of the downs in front of Keith Abney. And that is a phenomenal cornerback. And I could easily see Josh Hoover not trusting Eric McAllister, but more so saying, I'm going to go to the place of least resistance, and that's avoiding Arizona State's top corner because I have a lot of talent on my team. Now, that does not mean completely abandoning McAllister. I could see a few throws early in the game. Let's see how this is going to go. Let's see what the momentum is. Let's see what the rhythm is. Let's see where Abney versus McAllister lays in the first quarter. And if McAllister's getting the best of them, then all right, we're probably going to see a lot of targets McAllister's way because that is a person who's going to be involved in the offense always. But let's say that Abney gets a PBU. Let's say that maybe it's some sticky coverage and Hoover's forced to move off of him early. I don't think that you're going to see all game long them trying to test this. Josh Hoover trusts Eric McAllister, but he also trusts Dwyer. He also trusts Manjack. He also trusts himself. And I think he also understands there's no reason. This is not a measuring contest. This is not who can beat their chest the hardest. This is how do we win a football game? And sometimes going to the side of the field that has the more favorable matchup is a little bit better than saying, I trust my guy versus your guy, especially when I feel like I got multiple guys. And that's the way that I look at it. Originally, this was going to be a segment of Keith Abney versus Eric McAllister. That's originally what this segment was going to be about. But then I thought to myself, well, how often is McAllister going to be on Abney or Abney be on McAllister? I thought about that, and I think that that was important. So allow me to give you a couple of numbers that prove that Abney versus McAllister may be a, honestly, 100% snap count matchup. So I looked at how often McAllister switched sides, because when you start thinking about it, everything he does is on the offensive right? Like, but at the same time, that could be big catches on the offensive right, could be his catches are on the offensive right, but he lines up elsewhere on running plays, or he lines up elsewhere and just doesn't get targeted. It could have been that. So I decided to look. Eric McAllister is almost exclusively a right side wide receiver. Almost exclusively a right side wide receiver. And if he's out wide, he is exclusively a right side receiver. There have been a couple of times when he went to the left, every single time was slot. And that could be that he was motioned over there. So he could have been aligned pre-snap on the right side, motioned to the left, ended up in the slot. But when you're talking about him being out wide, 100%, literally, he has never taken a snap out wide on the left side this entire year. So that made me then go look to Keith Abney. Because the question is, would Abney follow McAllister? I thought that was a very interesting question. Turns out that it doesn't matter because he won't have to. McAllister stays in one spot, so he doesn't have to follow him. But Abney's kind of odd. Abney plays both sides of the ball. That would tell me, A, he does follow, right? He's not just playing sides as a cornerback. But then also, he spent the entire game on the left side, and he spent the entire game on the right side. I believe you will see him play the entire game in front of Eric McAllister, unless Jordan Dwyer goes off to the point where they say, all right, you got to go over there. That's possible. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to trust that we'll keep you on Eric McAllister, but that just opens the door for Dwyer. And it's not as if Arizona State has a bad second corner, right? Javon Robinson is not a bad player. But I've seen Dwyer really cut people up. And I feel like there was a similar level of confidence at North Carolina, where North Carolina had a top corner and we're going to take Eric McAllister out of the game. And they did. They did that. And that's impressive. But now you have to deal with the Manjacks. You have to deal with the Dwyers, with the Curtis, with the Rogers. You have to deal with guys like Payne catching out of the backfield. So it's not as if stopping one receiver all of a sudden stops the entire passing attack. But I'm going to isolate on Jordan Dwyer, who has speed to beat cornerbacks deep. He has the speed to threaten deep and end up throttling down for a curl route. I think he does those really well. I think vertical stem routes are where I see Dwyer really excel, whether that's beating you deep and catching the ball over the top, whether that's threatening with his speed and stopping short. So now you're off and it's a lot of space created from there. And then he has a good job running with the ball in his hands. Or if it's having the back shoulder pass that him and Hoover have a really good communication, really good chemistry with. These are, in my opinion, things he does very well, and they all relate back to his ability to threaten to go deep or actually going deep. This is to me one of the premier matchups in the game. Eric McAllister versus Keith Abney. It's something to watch. It's something you should monitor. But I also believe it's going to be the catalyst for a big-time game from Jordan Dwyer, and he will keep the streak alive of TCU having a different 100-yard receiver each game. They have never had the same receiver get 100 yards back-to-back, but they've never gone a game without a receiver getting 100 yards. That does not stop against Arizona State. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day, we're going to keep rolling, and don't forget, come back and holler at me after the game. I'll be right here in this same chair talking about a little bit of different things, but we will be talking about whether or not Jordan Dwyer lived up to my expectations tonight. So let's keep rolling. Let's keep rolling and take a look at the game plan to stop Sam Leavitt, because it's not that complicated. And TCU did it just last week, but there are going to be some significant tweaks when it comes from Jennings to Leavitt. Let's explore those as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. Oh, field goal. Oh, a touchdown. No, there's more than that. There are moments that move the crowd, move the culture, and even move the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward was Eric McAllister's second touchdown, the 70-yard catch and run that, in my opinion, reinvigorated the TCU offense at a moment where things could have gone stale and the game could have pivoted towards SMU. Not only did it reinvigorate the TCU offense, I think it was a pivotal matchup, or excuse me, a pivotal moment that led to TCU winning that matchup. So we don't have to talk about it too long. We have another game tonight, TCU versus Arizona State. But when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second, third, fourth, fifth, I don't know how many podcasts you listen to a day. For your last listen of the day, make sure you're coming back for Locked On Horned Frogs, because we will be live after the Arizona State game. Now, where I'm at in the Central Time Zone, that'll probably be the last thing I do for the day before I hit the sheets, and it'll probably be the last thing I do before the clock hits midnight. So make sure you come and have fun with us. TCU got the game plan for defending Sam Leavitt last week when they played Kevin Jennings, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think you have to tweak it much when you're facing a running quarterback from another running quarterback. It's pretty similar. The theory, the idea of stopping a mobile quarterback, you know what to do. It's just about doing it. That's it, right? Like the pass rush is the same. There's certain intricacies that make players different. For example, Kevin Jennings was a player who I think he struggled going to his left. I think that's what it was. He struggled going to one side. So you want to try to force him that way if he's going to scramble. But all in all, you're looking at defending. You're looking at rushing Leavitt the same way you rushed Jennings. Now, Kevin Jennings and Sam Leavitt are both mobile quarterbacks. And in that right, you will approach them very similarly. But there's one major difference between Jennings and Leavitt that makes them drastically different players. Jennings runs to pass. So he's scrambling. He still has his eyes downfield, and he wants to pass the football. Not so much for Leavitt. Leavitt is running to run the football. He had 15 carries versus Baylor last week. That's a career high. He is looking to run. When he drops his head, he's looking to go forward himself and do it all on him. That's a much different player, but I don't think that approaching them is that different. You still want to keep your pass rush lanes disciplined. You still want to make sure that your interior guys aren't getting too wide to open up a crease, because though Jennings was running to pass, he was still very much so a threat to run. That is something that has to be acknowledged. Jennings was a threat to run. So it's not as if you're like, oh, well, he's just going to move around. He has great pocket mobility. No, he is a running threat. You have to keep eyes on him from the second level. That's still going to be the same for Leavitt. You want to make sure that your defensive ends don't get too far upfield. You want to make sure that they don't jump too far in, because both of those things can lead to you losing contain and you moving the pocket or leaving the pocket open for Leavitt, in this case, to run out. You don't want your guys to get too wide because he can run up. Like, these are all things that are pretty similar. These are pretty safe bets to say it's the things that you preached last week and you're preaching this week. But this guy Leavitt is so strange. He's so strange because most times you see quarterbacks struggle under pressure. You see, you want to keep him clean. You almost want to let a rusher get to Leavitt because he excels when pressure gets to him. He excels when he's being blitzed. That's abnormal. That's not typically what you'll see. But one of the biggest criticisms or descriptions, depending on who they're talking about or who's talking about it, one of the biggest descriptions or criticisms of Leavitt is he's better at playing off schedule than he is on timing. And with that, you have to be careful. Because if you get to Leavitt, you have to bring him down because he's very instinctual. He's looking to run as soon as you get to him. Let's bring some PFF numbers into this because I think that this is a good way to lay out what Leavitt does and why I say he's strange. That's a weird thing to say, right? He's strange. but that's how I feel. So when kept clean, his PFF grade is a 71.1 overall. His passing grade is a 66.7, and his run grade is a 75.7. Okay. Remember that. Overall, 71.1. But when he's under pressure, he's a 76 even. So you're looking at a near 5-point jump on his grade when he's under pressure. Now, we can look at big time throws and things of that nature. There's different ways to look at it, but I just want to look at the overall grade. That this is how he is viewed under pressure versus clean. His passing does take a knock, drops down to 58.9. That's what we expect. But the problem is when he's under pressure, his run grade jumps from a 75.7 to an 88.5. So when you're seeing Sam Leavitt clean, he's sitting back in the pocket, and he's solid, throw the ball solid, but when he's under pressure, it's like something clicks in his brain, and he's able to run the ball better because now he's just playing on instincts. Now it's just, all right, we're a football player. Let's make something out of nothing. But it doesn't stop there. Blitzed. When he's not being blitzed, he is a 68.2. 68.2 overall when he's not being blitzed. 59 passing grade. So he's only slightly better when he's not blitzed than he is when he's actually under pressure. Now, under pressure includes being blitzed. It includes sending a 4-man rush and somebody getting there. But when he's not blitzed, he is a 59 passing grade. He does have an 83.1 run grade. So once again, we see an elite, or not elite, but a really good run grade out of Leavitt. But here goes the one that really is crazy to me, and it's almost the best version of him. By overall grade, it is. The weirdest thing about Sam Leavitt is that the best version of him comes out when he's being blitzed. You've seen the best version, clean versus pressure, is pressure. And the best version out of every metric, 79.1 overall grade when he's being blitzed. He has a 71 passing grade, which means he passes against the blitz better than he does in any other condition. And you're looking at the run grade, he has an 82.8. So not the best run grade when he's blitzed, but still pretty good. Like, that's still a pretty good run grade when he's blitzed. So once again, you go through it. Sam Leavitt is such a strange player because you typically want to heat a guy up and you think that's going to disrupt him. But it's like when you get him out of structure, when you get him to just being an instinctual player, that's the best version of Sam Leavitt. Doesn't mean that you don't heat him up. Doesn't mean that you don't get pressure on him. It just means that when you get pressure, you have to take him down. When you blitz him, you have to make sure that he's not going to hit the hot routes. That goes to the cornerbacks. When you're blitzing him, you got to make sure that if the first guy doesn't get there, there's a second guy present. And I thought that TCU did that very well versus SMU. Once again, when he's being blitzed, 79.1 overall. That's better when he's being blitzed, a 79.1 overall. That's better than when he's not blitzed. That's better than when he's kept clean. And that's better when he's under pressure. Like, that is the best version of him as an overall player. The best version of him as an overall player comes when he's being blitzed. Then the best version of him as a passer comes when he's being blitzed. That's the weirdest thing. So you got to be careful. It doesn't mean that you sit back and drop 7 or drop 8 and just try to say, okay, we're going to keep him clean and he won't be able to read. You're going to probably blitz him. That's okay. You just got to be careful when you do it. But as we move forward, we're going to take a look at some more numbers. We're going to take a look at some of the numbers from the Arizona State game notes and why that greatly impacts the game. It gives us a couple of pivotal moments to look at as we continue and close out today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash, and it's almost the weekend. Look, it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. It's Eric McAllister. It's Jamel Johnson. Let's do Jamel Johnson. We've been talking about McAllister all week. It's Jamel Johnson with his 2 interceptions, both of which were pivotal moments in the fourth quarter. One closed out the game, and one was, in my opinion, it was the dagger. It was the moment that put the dagger in SMU, while the next offensive drive is the one that twisted the dagger. But Jamel Johnson's interception felt like, okay, TCU is going to win this game. The next drive said, TCU is winning this game. That is the way that I looked at that play. Big time moment. can't recreate it. It's a difficult thing to articulate in the face of Eric McAllister's 254 yards, but I thought that these were pivotal moments. And just like Johnson delivered for the Frogs, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays or Fridays, seeing that the game is tonight. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every day that you order, every Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with Game or with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. And caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugars and 0 crashes. That's what I need. I'm not trying to crash. All right. I might have to take a 5 Hour Energy before tonight's episode, because it's late, man. I'll be tired around that time. I don't know about you, but I am tired around that time. But it's going to get me through that show. 15 minutes in and out. 5 Hour Energy is all I need. Honestly, I love how fast it kicks in too. Enough with the boring and flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store or online at 5hourenergy.com. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take a look at some numbers that I thought were quite interesting when looking at the Arizona State game notes. Now, I don't remember seeing this on the SMU ones, but if this is a thing that's going to be on all opposing game notes, we will do this every Friday, maybe Thursdays. No, Thursday is the crossover on most weeks. So we will do this every Friday. But I thought this was interesting. So they said the Sun Devils, they said that the Sun Devils have a 34.5% offensive touchdown rate in the final 4 minutes of the second quarter, dating back to the start of last season. That's the 19th best percentage in the nation. Okay, cool. Conversely, it's another one. Conversely, Arizona State has allowed just 2 touchdown drives in the final 4 minutes of the first half, dating back to 2024. And that is 8th best in the country. Here's one other thing that all relates to the middle 8. They have not allowed a single touchdown in the first 4 minutes of the second half. So that's a lot of numbers I just threw at you, but they're all connected to the middle 8. The last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. Arizona State's defense has been elite in this moment. This is also a place where I feel like TCU has been pretty solid. You know, they've had different difficulties, maybe missed field goals, but for the most part, I think that they've been pretty solid in this aspect of the game. They've started the second half strong a lot, and they've also closed the first half strong. Arizona State has not allowed defenses to do that or offenses to do that. While on the offensive side for the Sun Devils, they have performed well. So there's a lot of attention that's being placed on the last 15 minutes of the game because Arizona State has had a really impactful last 15 minutes of the game versus their other 2 FBS opponents or their other 2 P4 opponents. I think that we have to watch that middle 8. We have to watch the transition between the first half and the second half because a lot of times those are momentum moments. Those are going into halftime. How are you feeling? Coming out, what is the tone of the game moving forward? Arizona State has done a great job dictating that over the last year and some change. TCU can come in and kind of take that ability away. I think that is going to be very pivotal for them moving forward. Here's one that I thought was interesting too. We talk about close games. The Sun Devils are 6-1 in games of 7 points or less over the last 2 seasons. Okay. Close games favor Arizona State. They're at home, and I think close games tend to favor the home team just because you got the crowd there, and I think close games tend to favor that. We'll see. That's just an interesting nugget. I'm going to leave that alone, but I thought that was something interesting to point out. And then probably lastly, not lastly, but these 2 stats go together. So lastly, Arizona State has forced 29 tackles for a loss this year. That's 16th in the country. And their 13 sacks are 11th in the country. Okay. That's an improvement from last year. That's the reason they're excited for it. But the reason you have to be concerned is they have a really good defensive line. especially when you get into rushing the passer. Arizona State has 53 quarterback pressures this year, which is 22nd nationally. Now, that already is impressive in its own right. But here goes the thing that really makes it interesting, is that they're 22nd in the league, in the nation, in pressures, despite the fact that they don't blitz really ever. They only blitz 17.9% of the time, and that's fifth lowest in the country. So they brought four or fewer. So just a down lineman, or maybe a down lineman drops and a guy replaces him as a blitzer, but 4 people. They've brought 4 rushes 156 or 146 times, which is the second most, which basically means they're playing coverage a lot while also getting great pressure with the front line. That is arguably the worst combination that you can see from a defense if you're on the offensive side of the ball. You don't want the whole drop coverage because now it makes it harder to read. There's less holes. It's better against the passing attack. But you also feel like you may have more time to cut up that defense. Though there's less holes, you have more time to run around. You have all these things. But if the front 4 can get pressure, it becomes very difficult. That becomes a very difficult sell. It's not the same. It's not the same as if just you have time to sit back there and cross up or slice up the defense. This will be interesting. The first 4 or the middle 8, the first 4 of the second half, and the last 4 of the first half, pivotal moment. Can TCU come out with a win in those 8 minutes? The ability to stop Arizona State's front line from getting pressure, that will greatly impact not only Josh Hoover and his ability to throw, but also that front line is going to impact the ability to run the ball. You don't have Kavorian Barnes, so you don't have that physical presence. But if you can get to the edges with with Palmer and Battle, then I think you're going to feel okay. I don't know why I keep saying Palmer. Payne. They got 2 P's and 2 B's in a backfield. It always trips me up. But one thing that doesn't trip me up is that you need to be here tonight. Tonight. They say tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. I will not see you tomorrow. The next time that we see each other, family, will be tonight after the game. So until then, take care. Stay blessed.